seems fair to me. Fair decision.
Yes, he did.
Well, if you don't know what fair is, you can't make it look unacceptable.
Donnybrook is made possible by the members of the 9 Network.
Well, spring has finally sprung. A beautiful day today. I'm sure we're going to have a beautiful night tonight on Donnybrook. Before we get started, thank you to the good folks at the Gatesworth, because without them, we would not be here on this fine evening. Going to start with Wendy, Wiese, media veteran. Looking good as usual. Pretty in pink.
Thank you.
Sitting in for Bill McClellan today, Joe Holleman from the St. Louis Post-Dispatch. A founder, Ray Hartmann from the Riverfront Times. Ray's boss at the Riverfront Times, Sarah Fenske, is here.
I was longing to hear that.
Sitting in my seat. And I'm Alvin, Reid, sitting in for Charlie Brennan. Well, we're going to start out tonight discussing a vote that happened really about right before we were going to come on last week. Roy Blunt sided with a handful of Republican senators to turn back our president's plan for funding of the border wall. Since then, he's caught some flack back at home, including he was disinvited from a speaking engagement he was going to have a little later this year. I'm going to Wendy on this one. Wendy, what do you think about that? Do you think he should really be concerned about the backlash?
I think Roy Blunt is he is the consummate politician. He has lived through so many so many evolutions in Washington, D.C., that I doubt that he's losing a lot of sleep about this. It's sort of hard, I think, trying to decide which way the wind is blowing politically and, how strong one party or one faction within a party is very difficult to tell these days. But the conservatives who are lining up behind Donald Trump, which is kind of funny because nobody believed that he was a conservative when he was elected.
He isn't.
But now he is the leader of the conservative arm of the Republican Party, and cross him at your peril. And so it's sort of a lopsided way of circling back and saying that no, I don't. He survived the Tea Party. I think he'll survive this.
I don't think he's worried, but I think that, and we just don't know, with so much is unknown about 2020 with Trump, and Roy isn't up until 2022. So
Right.
It's not like a big risk. It's fascinating to see, though, his evolution as one of the grown-ups in the room, and I wrote about this in the RFT, the contrast between him and Josh Hawley on this government shutdown was just unbelievable. Not only was Roy Blunt probably as responsible as anybody in the country for saving the government, because he was the highest-ranking Republican in the Joint Committee that did this, but Josh Hawley just savaged not only the vote, but the process, and in effect savaged Roy Blunt in tweets about how terrible this is, Washington as usual.
Because Blunt did give mixed signals. At first, he said he was going to support the president's declaration, and then he opposed it. So
Josh Hawley just was trying to outflank Trump, basically, or be a great loyal soldier. I think it's great to see Roy Blunt do it. We'll see how long he maintains this amount of nerve. This particular event was just one kind of far-right person that probably not that big a deal. But if Trump were to get reelected in 2020,
then he'd be in trouble.
Roy Trump, well, he just have to change
I think
his
it's
tune.
interesting that within the Democratic Party and the Republican Party, you've got all of this dissension. You've got the more progressive wing of the Democrats. You've got the more conservative wing of the Republicans.
Yeah, I don't think Roy Blunt's going to have any. For right now, I'm sure Republicans who backed the emergency move are disappointed in him. That's how the game gets played. You were counting on a vote. He wasn't the only Republican who looked at it and said, I don't think this is a good idea. So, let us, should we all give him credit for voting his conscience and doing the right thing? I don't know if anybody else at this table can go that far to say that about Roy Blunt. But
I did. Well, what I was going to say was, the man is like a constitutional, attorney. And I think he explained himself in that, this is a road that we don't want to go down for any president.
Sure.
It doesn't have to do with Donald Trump. And I think that gets lost in the argument.
And I also think that the consummate politician is let us assume, for the sake of argument, that Donald Trump does get elected in 2020. He immediately has less influence than ever because he's a lame duck president. And Roy Blunt isn't up until 2022. So I think both politically and, let's say for at least time being, philosophically, Roy Blunt made the smart move.
And doesn't it position him nicely if he later wants to go be a lobbyist? It gets him in good with the big powers that be in Washington who are going to outlast Trump. The swamp is still going to be there.
Well, and let me say, I didn't mean to really bring up the specter of Armageddon with him being reelected in 2020, but it's just something you have to take as a possibility.
Well, I mean, I'd take for granted that he is going to win again in 2022, and I think the last thing.
No, I'm talking about Trump.
I know, but I'm saying I think Blunt is going to run again regardless of who is the president.
He's getting to a
and
point.
I think that it will come down to, I really doubt the people of Missouri want to try to find another Josh Hawley to beat him in a primary, because keep in mind, that's where the competition would come from because of this vote, because Democrats could really care less. They're going to try to elect a Democratic senator.
You know, Josh Hawley fancies himself as a constitutional lawyer, and he's proving himself to be much more awful than expected, which is really saying something.
Oh, please, then you expect a lot more than I did. Okay, Ann Wagner, out in St. Louis County, western St. Louis County. She wants to put together a suburban caucus to kind of take a look-see at, the way we are doing things, and she feels like maybe Republicans are overlooking things like health care and how much daycare. Oh, boy. Sounds kind of Democratic to me. What do you say, Ray?
Well, it looks smart on its face politically, as long as they're able. Ann Wagner has, talk about somebody who can do some cartwheels. She went in from October of 16, after the Access Hollywood tapes, being one of the most outspoken Republicans, demanding in October, 3 weeks before the election, that Trump leave the ticket, saying he was unfit for office. And then she was like, preening with him in the Oval Office 5 months later. It was just unbelievable. She's got an interesting thing, because they need to worry about suburban voters, and in particular suburban women, and this makes all kinds of sense politically, except that everything they would be for, the Trump base would be against. So it's going to be interesting to see how she can kind of, if it's just something she's doing for appearance, or if she's actually going to substantively try to find some kind of center, because on guns, on immigration, those are not issues that suburban voters are with the president on.
I think yet another smart move by a Republican. I mean, I guess part of it is we're sitting here talking about how, boy, these politicians are pretty good with these political things.
They're good at being politicians.
That's what they do. I mean, and so the idea is, well, they pivoted here, they switched here. It's like, or then they'll go get a job in the swamp.
Yeah,
and I mean,
in the case of Wagner, she's the one who's shouting freedom as she guts Obamacare, and now she's like, "What can we do to make healthcare more affordable?"
Right.
I appreciate a politician.
If endorsing Obamacare has to be, if you're against freedom, if you're opposed to Obamacare, I'm not sure I make that connection. No,
you're just against health care if you're against Obamacare.
What I loved so much
for the Constitution
about the story was that she threw the Republican Party on. I mean, this woman is she's masterclass. I mean, she really is. She threw the Republican Party under the bus. I really believe the Republicans have, they have overlooked the needs of the. I was like, who is this person?
I know that was the line, and I was saying like,
no, because Claire did something that she shouldn't have, and she lost.
Well, that's true.
And Ann is trying not to lose. Okay,
right.
I mean, and so that's what this is. I mean, any of these, and I don't care if it's a Democrat or Republican. You farm all the committees you want. How about at the end of the day, show me what the results are, and then let's judge it. Farming a caucus, great. Farm 5 caucuses,
right,
and 8 committees. Show me at the end of it what you did. And that's how you get judged.
All right. Well, I'll tell you who is running for office again in 2020, and that would be Ann Wagner. Well, there's also this little thing might be on the ballot called Better Together. So somebody will be running against her in 2020, some Democrat, and Congressman Clay will also be up for re-election in 2020. Now, Ann Wagner's talking about the concerns of suburbia, and she doesn't mention Better Together. Meanwhile, in the city, I haven't heard much from Congressman Clay on Better Together either. Joe, why are they dancing around the elephant in the room?
I sort of previewed my lead because they are two smart politicians. And so you have this Republican and this Democrat who are basically going, yeah, better together. No, oh, gotta go. You know, I mean, who wants to address this with everybody on the state level, county level, city level beating each other up? I think both of them are just like, guys, get back to me when this is all over with. I mean, and what is there to say about it?
Well, I'll tell you what there's to say. Kurt Van Ostrom can have something to say if he runs. He ran a really good race the first time against Ann Wagner. And if the Democrats are smart in Ann Wagner's district, they will make an issue out of this, because whatever's going to happen statewide, we have a pretty good idea that this is not popular in Ann Wagner's district. And that if she is, you know, even though it's technically not a national issue you're voting on, we expect our politicians, our congressional leaders, to be leaders here. And I don't want to make it a completely different set of issues. The city's a little more divided, but Mike Jones and others in the African American community are speaking very clearly right now. And Lacey Clay might be, whether he has I doubt of a primary opponent, but you know, my point is, I think this could be an issue that resonates with people if the other side plays it right.
And I think the Republicans, they really have to play this very carefully, because I think they've got some polling that shows that their own voters are very much against this. At the same time, their donors want it more than anybody.
Right.
And so I don't know how Ann deals with something like this. You can see why she's keeping her mouth shut, but wouldn't it be nice to see some leadership at a time that the region needs it more than ever? Somebody to come out who doesn't have a dog in this hunt and isn't just being on the consultant gravy train on this thing, who could talk to us for real about whether this is a good idea. I'm still waiting for that.
And unfortunately, I think she's going to pivot at the last minute like she did with Trump. You know, she's going to wait, she's going to read the tea leaves, she's going to find out how many, you know, petition signatures are gathered, how it's, you know, how it's faring. And then she'll decide to jump in or stay out.
And it's so disappointing.
It is.
Well, no, wait. Okay, it's disappointing, or it's smart politics.
Well, same thing for me.
So
yeah, it is. Both.
I'm an idealist.
Would you like to hear?
That.
Would you like to hear from Lacey Clay about it?
I would.
Yeah,
I absolutely would.
Yeah, I don't know. Sure.
I think why would either one of them want to get in when right now nobody's really sure where it's going?
Well, and when you see
why do you want to climb out on that limb?
Lyda Crewson and Steve Stenger were practically burned in effigy. I mean, I think Stenger still might be in hiding.
Well, and they're players in it. So they're going to be put in a position. They're looking at this, and I'm sure that Mr. Clay and Ms. Wagner are going, you know, the federal government's really not involved in this, so we're just going to go ahead and back off a little bit.
Yeah.
It's called smart politics.
Well,
that's all it is.
I don't know if it's smart.
But it's sort of leadership, as Sarah
I
points
don't
out.
think it's smart as much as just sort of non-politics at the moment. But we'll see what. I understand that they're going to wait to see what's smart. But the reason I don't know that it's disappointing, in my mind, is it's so predictable. I mean, it's like it would be disappointing if we had any expectations.
She's disappointed.
I understand.
A lot of
saying,
people are.
I'm just saying there's so little expectation
I'm
that
just
one of
not
these
as
leaders
cynical
is
as
going
my
to.
columnist.
Right.
All right, just as is often pointed out to us, now you live in the city. Well, you do.
I
I do.
She
Oh,
does.
I'm sorry.
She does. We had two.
All
All right.
Well, I mean, the five of us county dwellers that are usually
You
here.
are our street
All right,
cred
yeah,
tonight.
again,
this
this
is
is
good.
our street.
We don't have
very
to.
good.
Hey,
Right.
we don't have to get that on your turn.
Yeah, but if, you know, I'm a constituent and I want my congressperson to stand up for me because I think the way this is going down is ridiculous. And I don't think it's too much to ask her to do that. I don't think it's too much for people in the 1st Congressional District to ask Lacey Clay, tell me something. In fact, tell me, hey, you're wrong, you should vote for it. I mean, to me, that's a better answer than no answer. And there's a lot of, just, you know, ugly sentiment growing in St. Louis County against this thing, and I think Ann Wagner should be careful that it doesn't really create a problem for her.
I agree that the logical mind says I'd at least like to hear what you're thinking about it, but somewhere along the line, politicians have realized, and did not start with Mr. Clay or Ms. Wagner, that I can't get in trouble for something I don't say.
All right.
That goes back time immemorial. So we can wish, as there were probably 100 years ago, people wishing certain politicians spoke out about fill in the issue. So, and what is it we want them to say? Good idea or bad idea?
Well,
and then we hang that on them for the next 2 years or until 2022.
We want them to affirm our anger.
I'll tell you what,
that's
seriously,
I'd
that's
give you
what
a
it
reason.
is.
I
It's
know
about
that's
our
not productive.
feelings. It's about our feelings. We
but
wanted
Joe-
to address our
I
feelings.
vote, though.
Joe,
What's
I
wrong
can
with
give you a
that?
reason
Well, you're
why.
going to vote one way or the other. You're going to make your decision regardless of what Mr. Clare and Ms. Wagner says.
And keep in mind, Alvin, keep in mind one other thing. Ann Wagner is no stranger to state politics. So even though she's a congressional representative now, she was the chair of the Republican Party, and she was, I think that's right, and she was really wanted to run for the seat that Josh Hawley won. She was trying, or at least certainly thinking
She was
about running
removed from the path.
right, by Senator Danforth. And so it's not like she could say, well, I'm sticking just to national issues. She's had aspirations to be in a state issue, and
early.
this is a state issue.
All right. Okay, Circuit Attorney Kim Gardner. She's like that team in the basketball tournament that's going on right now. It was down maybe 10-12, and she's trying to put together a little comeback. Strong editorial from the St. Louis American saying, you know, watch this special prosecutor, and a large number of black clergy came together with her and are traveling to Jefferson City, I guess, to take on some piece of legislation that would be easier, I won't say to get rid of her, but whoever the circuit attorney would be. Sarah, too little, too late, piling on. What's going on?
I thought the St. Louis American actually had a really good piece this week, and they were looking at some of the questions involving the special prosecutor who's looking at Gardner's office. And one of the issues that they raised is the fact that this special prosecutor has a friendship with Ed Dowd, who was the attorney for Eric Greitens. And Dowd basically made it clear that he wanted to get Gardner for taking this case and bringing down the governor. And at this point, there's some question of, is this the revenge of the Greitens team? And I think there's been enough questions raised about this that even if there are some things that happened wrong in that case, and I think everybody can admit that, I will admit that, but there's a lot of things about this process that seem like it's turning into a chance to go after Kim Gardner for taking what at the time she was doing for principal reasons.
And here's what I think is kind of a valid question. If they are able to discredit her, to really, you know, drive a stake in the office, if you will, does that serve the purpose of sort of helping the resurrection that everybody's been talking about since the day he left office of Eric Greitens?
Oh, I don't think that at all, but I think it does. It hangs a carcass on the wall to say, don't take down somebody who's politically powerful because there will be consequences. And I think there's a problem with that. I've covered so many court cases, and as somebody who's covered these, you know that routinely people do some low-level fudging of what they talk about. There are seldom special prosecutors. There are never perjury charges. Once the case is over, it's like no harm, no foul. Now in this case, the spotlight is on, and we're going to go after this outside guy who's never going to work in this town again, make a huge deal about it, and try to remove the woman who appointed him, acting in good faith at the time she did so. It just seems like it's saying, don't mess with the politician. You might as well keep prosecuting those poor people who can't fight back, because if you take down somebody big, there will be hell to pay.
I'm feeling like the Joe I know is
Joe
about
is
to speak.
about to explode.
Nice Joe has been.
First of all, I feel like I stumbled in a place where we've talked about principled politicians, forward-thinking politicians, and good faith politicians, three qualities that I never attribute to politicians of any party. Okay, so starting from that place, but I mean, it seems that there's two issues here. And I understand the issue, and I thought the American's editorial was spot on about, is this the right special prosecutor for it? But I don't think that then leads me down a road to say, and what's with this perjury anyway? It happens all the time. Honestly, if someone has perjured themselves, and let's say it's for the defense side or what have you, that is one case. If you have someone directly employed by an elected official, the top prosecutor, who is committing perjury, that is a little bit different. And someone could say perjury is perjury. No, it's not. If you got a guy on the street who's a car thief who perjures himself, or you have the office of a prosecutor bringing in a special investigator who perjures himself, that is a different case. So I am more than willing to say if people believe that Carmody it should not be the special prosecutor, I have no argument whatsoever. Get a different one. But to say that she shouldn't be prosecuted because it happens all the time is not a road I'm willing to go down.
They're not going to get a different one, I don't think. But the point about him is he's qualified. There isn't any question about his credentials and
where's
his
his
experience.
loyalty?
No,
That's-
I'm agreeing with you. I mean, while he's qualified and has a good reputation, the fact is, couldn't you find somebody that wasn't tight with Eric Greitens' attorney? I mean, you know,
couldn't the prosecution found a prosecutor somewhere who was a Republican to go against Greitens?
I think it was. I think it was
politics
clear.
again.
Well, it was clear that. Well, I mean, it was very clear that there were some missteps in this case, and we'll see how far they go. But I like the fact that it's being pushed back against by the American and others, just saying let's make this let's keep this process fair.
Especially if we look at the forces that would like to take Gardner down. Right now, she is in quite a war with the St. Louis Police Department. I mean, they seized her server. I mean, this is unthinkable, the heights that this has escalated to. There are a lot of people who would like to use this pretext to take it much farther than it needs to go, and I think we need to be careful not to pile on at this point.
I have an idea. Bob McCullough's looking for a job right now. Maria Chappelle-Nadal, Bruce Franks, and several other.
You're just going to leave that right there.
I thought he was just devoting his time to parades.
Maria Chappelle-Nadal, Bruce Franks, some other legislators seem to have a problem getting to work and actually making votes down in Jefferson City. Wendy, is this something we should be concerned about? Because it kind of bothers me.
Well, Maria Chappelle-Nadal has proven time and time again that she just does not subscribe to conventional wisdom nor behavior. And I would love to see her be all that she can be, to sound like an Army commercial or a Marine commercial. She missed 47 of 117 votes.
Yeah, she had the highest percentage.
First half. I mean, it's inexcusable. I think if you are an elected official, you should do the job that you ask the people to send you to Jefferson City to do. I don't think that is asking too much. I understand that she makes $35,000 a year. I understand that she said that she's been working another job, even though she wouldn't disclose to the Post-Dispatch what that job is, and she said she was going back to bed at the end of their interview. She is an unconventional politician. Her constituents sent her, but I don't know how long they're going to put up with this.
I'm going to have to argue with Wendy here, as much as it pains me to do
okay.
it, because I admire Wendy so much,
so
and we
sweet.
finally got to meet today. But, I mean, look, if you look at most of the people who miss these votes, they are people who are not just in the minority, but in the more progressive wing of the minority. They are voting no on things that are going to pass, regardless of how they vote. So do we really feel like they have to make the drive down to Jefferson City just to vote no on some issue that doesn't have a chance of their vote making a difference?
Yes, we do.
Yes.
Yes,
sorry.
we do.
Tell me
Yes, we
why.
do.
Well,
I'm
because
sorry.
I think that's what we elect you to do. It's to be down there, and if you
So that a vote can be one vote difference
Absolutely.
than a
I
failed
wanna
effort?
know-
So if you can't win, don't vote.
Right.
So
And I want to
pointless.
know, because if that were the case, why am I going to vote for president in 2020? I know where Missouri's going,
whether
but I'm
you realize
voting.
it or not, you have a really famous work ethic. People know how hard you work. And you don't just phone it in because you are able to phone it in. I reject that argument.
Sarah,
as
I'm
much
going
as
to, in a few minutes we got left, I want to get to the county council. $5 million for security on Metrolink, yay! But right now, no money for convention center. How do you feel about that?
Well, it does look like they're going to approve this money, and I got to say, I wish they wouldn't. I mean, we're talking about $480 million in total coming from county, city, and some other sources. That is a huge chunk of money, and we keep throwing money at these convention centers. We keep saying, if we don't do this, we're going to fall behind. Well, we're doing it, and somehow we're still falling behind. Somebody explain to me how this is happening.
Well, I probably could, but I realize now that as we've identified, I just have to say how well you said that. Now that you're the boss, it's really eloquent. That was eloquent.
You're looking lovely today, Mrs.
Wrong, but eloquent. This is a matter of continuing the funding that's been going on for, 20 years. And we're at a crossroads. We have not invested in this convention center, which is a key part of the infrastructure of downtown. We have a hospitality industry built around it. We have restaurants built about it. It's not sexy, but the stuff they're doing to keep the center going and renovate it, you simply, if you want to just give up on conventions, fine. But while every other city that competes with us, and I'm talking about in the Midwest, supports and renovates and updates their convention center. We have to be able to do it. The funds aren't there otherwise. And I said it last week, I'll say it again. A lot of the people on the county council are upset about Better Together. And I think if they pull the rug on this, they're making Better Together's case for why we need to be together. And I don't think that's helpful, because I happen to believe that the city and county do not need to be jammed together through governmental surgery if they can work together on things like this.
One of the things I love about being a reporter, journalist, is that I can work myself into a fervor about spending this money on the convention center, and then when they don't and later on it starts to fall apart, I can write another story about how they neglected the convention center and let it fall apart. So what else are you going to do?
I think we're all over. I mean, I'm over my pay grade talking about it, because we're pricing storm doors at Lowe's, so I have no idea what it takes to keep something like that standing. But are you saying there's a happy medium between?
Well, I mean, you're saying we haven't. Ray is saying we haven't invested in it. We haven't even paid off the last investment in it. The whole reason this is coming up is because we've been paying. County and city have each been paying $6 million a year for like 20 years on end. This has been nothing but investment.
But we have to be able to have a convention center that has the facilities and the look and that are updated enough to bring in. And I've been surprised that we are able. After Ferguson, I thought we were just done with convention. We've been able to compete.
We've been able to compete. It's Ferguson's fault. Now it's the Raggedy Convention Center's fault. All right, but hey, there is some good news. St. Louis University Billikens really surprised all of us. 4 wins, 4 days. They're playing out in San Jose on tomorrow night. I think we can all tune in kind of late. Might be past your bedtime, Joe. But
I'm a night owl.
You're a night owl. Okay, that's what I hear.
I got him going to Sweet 16 in my bracket.
I do too.
Just to support him.
I do too.
I don't. Right, but I could be wrong. Hey, Joe, Sarah, thank you guys very much for sitting in. Hey, if you want to write to us, send it to Donnybrook, care of KETC, 3655 Olive Street, St. Louis, Missouri, 63108. Or send email to letters@ketc.org. Tweet to #DonnybrookSTL. Podcast at TuneIn, iTunes, Spotify, and Google Play. Ray Hartmann and I are going to take your calls on your turn. Once again, thanks, Sarah and Joe. It was great having you to the right of me, to the left of me. We'll see you guys next week on Donnybrook and Donnybrook, Your Turn. Thank you very much.
Donnybrook is made possible by the members of the 9 Network.
It's your turn on a beautiful spring night. It's officially spring on the 21st. Right. We're hopping like the Easter Bunny is on his way. We're going to start with Kathy in St. Louis County. Hi, Kathy.
How you doing?
Oh, hi. How you doing, Alvin and Ray?
Thank you.
Thanks for taking my call.
Sure.
I am calling regarding voting. I was in district. You guys were mentioning, and gals, were mentioning about the Ann Wagner and Court Van Astra district. And I'll tell you, we got the wrong ballots. And it went into the Board of Election Commission. It went into Jay Ashcroft's office, and nothing happened. Letters went from the ACLU to them regarding voting in August and November, and I guess they sat on it. I don't know what exactly happened, but a lot of people that came out after voting said they had gotten the wrong ballot.
What ballot did you get?
Pardon?
What ballot did you get? What?
We got the Lacey Clay ballot.
Really?
Okay.
Yeah. And I was wondering why they weren't running checks in the district to see whether or not there were too many votes that went over for people that weren't in that area versus people that were. And then I also called Court Van Ostra's, and they said there must have been some way or how that they knew that was going on too. So how do we know who actually won?
Well, my guess would be that if every one of those ballots was, voted for the Democratic candidate, he probably still wouldn't have won. But that's just a guess. My guess would be that if every one of those ballots was, voted for the Democratic candidate, he probably still wouldn't have won. But that's just a guess. I mean, because I'm not aware of the situation at all. So, but
all right,
thank you.
Thanks for calling. We appreciate you calling, and let's go to Jim from St. Louis. Hello, Jim.
Hey, I wanted to talk about how Roy Blunt voted against the national emergency.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a good thing, but one of the people I follow on Twitter is Rand Paul, and it seems like every Republican who is voting against the wall seems to be like they're really getting unpopular.
Okay.
Well, it depends on how you define unpopular. I think there were only, I want to say, Hawley was only one of 11. I mean, it wasn't that many.
You mean Blunt was one of 11?
No, actually, Hawley was. Right. It was a pretty. It just depends on how you define unpopular. I mean, there'll be a lot more votes between now and 2020 and 2022.
Many.
But, we appreciate you calling.
He'll get back on the good side. Don't worry. Well, on the good side of the president. Right?
Good side of the bad side.
Let's go to Doug, also in the city. Hi, Doug.
Hi, guys. How you doing tonight?
All right.
I've got an interesting conundrum. Eric Reid was elected governor, and he was a rising star in the Republican Party, and they were even talking presidential stuff down the line and whatever. But the big power financiers that financed Kim Gardner's campaign did not want him to go anyplace. So all of a sudden, she laid all these charges against him, puts him in this political quandary, and he gets out of office without even going to trial or being convicted by a jury or anything like this. And then all of a sudden, all these chickens are coming home to roost for her, and we're supposed to feel sorry for her.
Well, can I ask you a question? What big money interests are you talking about that funded Kim Gardner?
George Soros, for one. And
George Soros?
Yes, George Soros was documented as being one of her big financiers.
Okay, let me ask you this, Doug. Who was more responsible for Eric Greitens losing his job as governor, Democrats or Republicans?
Right now, I think it was because of the way everything was going after him. He should have hung in there and gone to trial, because he would have found that the charges were more unfounded. I mean, people have had affairs, and whatever. But
Doug, he went to trial. Doug, he went to trial, and it never reached anything by his jury selection because the charges were dropped against him. The reason that he resigned was because he was going to have to give up some information on who his donors were, and his problem was in Jefferson City with the Republican majority in the Senate and in the House, and that's why he resigned. Now, you may want to say that Kim Gardner should have never charged him with those crimes, and you could be correct, but the reason he resigned had nothing to do with Kim Gardner. He had beat the rap in St. Louis, and he was on out of here.
Plus, I think, respectfully, that Kim Gardner wasn't his problem. I think Eric Greitens was Eric Greitens' problem.
Well, obviously. But thank you, sir.
Thank you for the call. We appreciate it. Let's go to Bill from Rock Hill, first-time caller. How you doing, Bill?
Good evening. I'm recovering from an appendectomy that was performed 2 weeks ago Friday.
Ouch. Hope you're getting better, man.
I'm getting there. Yeah, I wanted to talk about, you guys have brought up the subject about Ann Wagner and William Lacey Clay with regards to Better Together. And the problem is, what can these two really do about it? Because they're Washington politicians, and it's a local issue. And if this were something that had been, handed down from Washington, then yeah, I would see where they would get involved in it. But really, both of them are kind of in an odd position because their job is up in Washington, not in Jefferson City or Clayton or downtown. And so for them to really take a position on it, it's not really going to do anything for them one way or the other.
Congressmen throughout the country, including our own, often get involved in local issues. They might pick and choose which ones they are, But hey, look, she represents me, okay? And this whole idea where, well, I'm, a federal person, I can't help you, I'm not buying that. No, to me, that's no excuse. Large majority of her constituents are against Better Together. And for her to sit out that, and for Lacey to do the same thing, to me is unacceptable. Totally unacceptable. And I don't want to hear, what can I do? You can do a lot.
I bet if the Blues make it to the Stanley Cup, though, they won't nothing to do with Washington. They'll be in St. Louis.
Yeah. Don't use them Cardinal tickets you get for free every year.
Let's go to the Twitterverse. See who's out there. Craig Riggins, right? Tweets, Ann Wagner modified her position on health care because Republicans have finally lost the ability to convince voters they would somehow be better off without affordable health care or health care at all. Who's next?
At Sister Sarah 23, go Slew. Happy to see a local school in March Madness. It's also good to see a strong female presence on Donnybrook tonight.
Thanks for that. And from Holy Star 77, great show tonight. Always great when Sarah Fenske comes on. It really does seem like the ghost of Greitens is haunting Kim Gardner now and shows you how power and money work in this country. And of course, I agree about Sarah Fenske and Joe Holleman. We had a great time with them. Thank you for the tweets. Keep them coming. Hashtag Donnybrook STL.
Let's go to Derek in Arnold. Hi, Derek.
How you doing? I'm talking about something feel good with St. Louis Billikens here.
Absolutely.
Yes. What's great is how the authorities there and the management gave those tickets away for students that could not afford to go there. That was awesome.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people, all of a sudden on a national stage with the coach Travis Ford. A lot of people don't realize Travis Ford, as a player, played for Missouri, then he transferred to Kentucky.
Right. Yes.
When he played for Kentucky, and he did great at Kentucky. He was a great player. And Travis Ford, some people get down on him because he's hard-nosed, but that's why St. Louis is in the March Madness now.
All right.
And, I think that's just a feel-good situation.
It is.
It is. It is. Thank you.
It was really great. It wasn't something I don't think anybody saw it coming.
No.
That run they had at the Atlantic 10 tournament was really special.
4 wins, 4 days. And I know all St. Louis probably said the same thing that I did when that game was over. I said, I'll be darned. And except I didn't say darn, right? Thank you, Derek.
Let's go to Paula from St. Louis. Hello, Paula.
I just want to say that I live here in North County, North City, and you want to be better to go with this better together. We don't. Our economy is down. Our schools are down. In North County, we have a food desert, no grocery stores, anything. But you want us to be better together? I don't understand how we're gonna be better together when we can't get together in the city and in North County.
All right, I hear you. Now they'll tell you that this will fix all those problems, which I'm not buying. But, yeah, I hear you. Plus, there's a great chance that you would lose a lot of your black political clout in North County and North City if this goes through. So one of a lot of reasons why, a lot of people stand opposed.
Who's next?
That'd be Bob in St. Louis. Hi, Bob.
Hey, guys. Good evening. Good show as always. A quick question for you. I wanted to make a comment with regard to the convention center funding that you discussed earlier tonight and that I've read about recently. In my opinion, the money would be much better spent on security for the city of St. Louis and the cleaning up the street crime, which is national headlines and which would prevent me from coming to St. Louis if I were not from St. Louis. I think the physical convention center plant, whether you get new carpeting, new paint, new woodwork, is secondary to people not wanting to come to St. Louis because of the street crime situation. So spend the money there, I think, would be a better investment for the city. Thank you.
I'm pretty sure these are funds that are earmarked for tourism, and conventions. So I know we have this argument all the time. Well, anytime somebody wants to spend something for tourism dollars for tourism, say, no, spend it for police. You can't spend every dollar for police. And I appreciate your sentiment. We all agree that one of the key elements of attracting conventions and attracting people to work and live downtown is improving the city's image and, in fact, improving its performance with regard to making it safer. But
right, and these are
it's not a fair trade-off. This is money that's has gone, and will continue to go for convention and tourism. I happen to think it's sort of a necessary. I don't want to say an evil, but certainly it's just necessary spending you have. If you want to compete for conventions, you have to have a convention center. When you bring in the convention planners to see what you have, they're not coming here if you have an outdated facility. It's as simple as that. And
I think the city is all in on whatever they're supposed to give.
They are.
Right. So we're talking about St. Louis County, right. And so even either or, St. Louis County couldn't put the money towards security in the city because they're not part of the city.
It's a good point, and it's just something that it's existing. It's been existing for a long time. It's not going to change anything in terms of the burden on folks in a county, and it's not enough that it's going to, if they just did away with it, we're all going to have some great spending spree. I mean, it's something that needs to get done, and I can't emphasize enough how important it is to have a facility that convention planners feel comfortable bringing their conventions to. It's as simple as that. Let's go to Bob in Chesterfield.
Hi, Bob.
Hello.
Go ahead.
How are you doing?
Thank you very much. 2 points. The main is that, in my opinion, this Better Together is such a deceitfully and disingenuously conceived horrendous plan that I believe our governor, as well as both of our United States senators and Congresswoman Ann Wagner, and for that matter, Congressman Lacey Clay, should come out and publicly denounce Better Together, and especially the fact that it's on a statewide ballot. It's completely, absolutely, thoroughly un-American. Ann Wagner, the governor, Tim Jones, all of these people who are speaking on Better Together or may have something to say about it should divulge the fact that they're on Rex Sinquefield's dime.
Okay.
I was going to say, I think you're going about I think you're going to go 0 for 5 or 0 for 6.
But you're right.
And Rex is not aware of their existence, not unaware of their existence. Let's put it that way. But it's an interesting thought from Bob from the breakaway Republic of Chesterfield,
yeah,
Missouri.
I'm telling you, they're serious about it down that way. Thank you, Bob. Let's go to Judith in the city. Hi, Judith.
Hi. Regarding the Roy Blunt's vote on the border wall, I think it was right constitutionally, it was right environmentally, it was right morally. We've already interfered with the floodplains in areas we do have the border wall. We caused flooding in Mexico because the border wall got clogged up and backed up water into Mexico. Right. When you do that, you increase chances for mosquitoes, and flood waters kind of dissipate a little bit, but then you get an increase. The humidity causes an environment just right for ticks and fleas to multiply. Those ticks and fleas get on cattle that come into our country.
Okay.
So we're sabotaging ourselves. And then also we're endangering the butterfly sanctuary. We need more pollinators.
All right.
Okay. Thanks for the call.
Thank you. Because, I mean, I've heard there was an environmental argument, but I did not know what it was.
Well,
so,
regarding Roy Blunt, I have to tell you, I disagree with Roy more often than not, obviously. But he's a good guy. And I think he's one of those. I was hoping Ann Wagner would be more like him. I understand the pressure on Republican politicians because Donald Trump is so overwhelmingly popular within the party. But the grown-ups in the Republican Party and the real Republicans, in terms of traditional Republicanism for the last, at least my lifetime, they've got, at some point, they've got to stand up for what's right. And I say good for him that he did it. I realize a lot of times he's going to be with the president. I may not like it, but at least he showed some integrity, I thought, with that vote.
Absolutely.
And let's go to Bob in the city. Hello, Bob.
Hi, Bob.
Hello, how are you?
Right. How you doing? Good.
First and foremost, I'd like to say God bless Donald Trump.
Okay.
Okay.
And I'd like to also say that city and county joining together is just, in my idea, it's just idiotic.
Okay. All right. Well,
we don't need them. They don't need us.
All right.
as far as that wall the lady just talked about, they'll build that damn thing.
All right. Okay. And they'll
build that wall.
We'll charge you personally, and me, and everybody else. Thanks, man. Let's go to Tim in Crestwood.
Hi.
Hey, Tim.
Good show tonight.
Thank you.
I had a comment on the convention center. I understand Ray's point about the tourism dollars can't be used, right? You know, you can't redirect everything to safety and security downtown. But having been a resident in the city for nearly 10 years and having recently left there because of the crime, I don't care if we built a brand new state-of-the-art convention center. We're not going to get the convention center planners to show up as long as we have the crime and the carjacking and everything else that goes on in the city.
Well, I don't mean to be argumentative, Tim, but I've talked to Kitty Ratcliffe in the last week or two, and she obviously, and I know you don't want me to mention it, but we did have a hit, short run from Ferguson, and we can't use it as an excuse, nor does she, and we've actually been pleasantly surprised, she says, by our ability still to attract interest and respect and participation from lots and lots of conventions. I mean, and lots of regional, so we're not dead, but we're flat. I mean, we're not certainly doing what we had hoped because conventions are planned 3 to 5 to 6 years out. But, you know, and we took a hit to our image, but it's not, as Alvin's pointed out, it's not permanent, and you have to have state-of-the-art or at least up-to-date, you know, facilities that accommodate the physical needs. Plus, if you've been around the convention center, a lot of what they're talking about is a bit cosmetic, but it's going to make the convention center a much more attractive place for people to visit. And it's not tourism, by the way. The convention business is a key part of supporting the hospitality industry that has a big investment in downtown St. Louis that includes restaurants, includes all kinds of folks. And so it's really, I think it's an important thing that we ought to all come together on because we are centrally located. We have so much going on in St. Louis that we are a good destination for conventions.
Absolutely.
You know.
All right, let's go over to Illinois and talk to Rick from Edwardsville. Hi, Rick.
Hey, how's it going?
Just fine.
I just want to let you guys write down 3 names: Felix Sater, Michael Flynn, and Carter Page. Bye.
I don't know what that had to do with anything, but
I think it sounds like I don't know if that's a coded message from the Mueller investigation.
I mean, I don't know what that has to do
with
Rick? Anything.
So
all right, we got a tweet.
We got a tweet. Who's that? From Liz Will. Of course, Blunt chose the right move in voting against Trump's so-called emergency, but it's hard to laud Blunt for it when he's been enabling President Trump's foolishness for 2 years now. And he's got an interesting point there, but I've got to support him when he does.
Well, he took the words right out of my mouth,
you know,
where I was going to say that. Now, listen, you said it like a lot of votes I'm not with. Some of it, I honestly did think that, oh, man, is this for, you sided with him on this issue for political, you know, expediency, or do you really believe this? But now, I mean, he just showed me that, listen, sometimes you have to say enough is enough. And he did this time.
Yeah, and you can't, I mean, we are so, one of the things that everybody knows out there is that we've got this, I think more than any time in my lifetime at least, this red silo, blue silo divide where Americans, if you watch the cable networks, for example, are getting, we might as well be on different planets, much less in different countries, in terms of what the news of any particular night is. And we're so divided on what we take in as information. And we can't have this mentality, no matter how partisan we are, how passionate we are, that the other side's always wrong, they're always evil. It's just not how a democracy works. And, you know, I really mean that. I don't, you know, you gotta, and I'm not trying to be, you know, kumbaya here or something. You've got to have some respect. That's what we try to do on the show. We differ strongly a lot of times, but you can't, you've got to have some ability to recognize the other side when you're
and when they do something
and without fear that everybody's going to say, oh, you're some neoliberal or whatever, you know. It's like
at some point between now and the next election cycle, some Democrat is going to make some vote that we disagree with. All right, and that should be respected, just like this one for Blunt was.
Right.
All right, let's go to Don in St. Peters. Hi, Don.
Hi, how are you guys doing
Good,
tonight?
just fine.
I guess I just want to expand on what one of your previous callers said, something about the crime in St. Louis, as far as having more attractions and restaurants and everything else. Yeah, you're going to attract some of those people there, but you're also going to attract more criminals because they're going to, you know, they're going to prey on those out-of-towners and whatnot. And until the police force steps up to do something about it a little bit more, even going down to Cardinal games, people are afraid to venture off very far from the stadium whatsoever.
Okay.
Well,
That's
I have
my
to say,
comment.
you know, the police force took some flack, I believe, here and elsewhere when they announced the chief, or was it the chief or was it Jimmy Edwards, I forget who it was, said that one of their points of emphasis was going to be downtown. And a lot of people said, gee, you know, and in fact, downtown statistically is still relatively one of the safer parts of the city. I mean, it just is. And if we keep having this narrative that it isn't, it's sort of a self-fulfilling prophecy. I think for most of us who go to Cardinal games and go to Blues games and go to the Arch and go downtown or work there, it is relatively, you know, crime's a horrible problem, but relatively speaking, you are not unsafe to go to a St. Louis Cardinal baseball game. And I just think we need to recognize that, and we cannot give up on convention business. It's as simple as that. If we want to be a major league city, you just can't give up on it.
Right. And if you want to talk about, you know, the carjackings, and they're happening all over the region, and that's getting headlines. If we're talking about murder, 90% of it, 95% of it are young black people killing each other on the north side. So,
which is a tragedy.
That's
it
a
has
tragedy.
To be addressed.
But the most heinous crime is not downtown. It's nowhere near the Enterprise Center. I almost called it Savas or Busch Stadium. So, but I'm not making light of the horror that is murder any place. Right. But yeah, you're safe down by the stadium. You should not fear downtown. Right.
Okay. Let's go to Jane from Jefferson County.
Hello.
Yes.
Hi.
I just wanted to say about Blunt having voted against that wall that myself and my family had made numerous calls to his office as constituents and, you know, requested that he vote against it, and maybe he actually paid attention to what we had to say.
Well, good for you for calling.
And you know, that's a good thing that you say, Jane, because I'm guilty of situations like that, not calling and registering myself as, even if it might be lost cause, whatever, you do put your voice out there. And kind of that goes back to that, you know, even that you're going to lose a vote down in Jefferson City, I do expect my elected official to be there and cast that dissenting vote, even if it's a lost cause. So Jane, you make an excellent point, and maybe you did. Maybe your one call,
you never know,
pushed him over the edge to do the right thing.
It's
good truth.
It's good.
Right.
I'll tell you what, it's good citizenship in any case.
Absolutely.
Good for you.
We applaud you, Jane. Thank you.
Who's next?
Bill in Bonne Terre. Hi, Bill.
What's on your mind, Bill?
Hey, guys, the Donald Trump thing, you know, you sit around and you hear he has 90% approval rating amongst Republicans. And I hear people saying, well, when are Republicans going to call him out for his behavior? When are they going to call him out for the hate and all the other crap that he's doing? They're not going to, because they believe what he believes. You can't approve of somebody without agreeing with them. This is who the Republican Party is.
I don't think it's quite
sorry.
90, but let me say this. The Republican Party has shrunk. When they talk about that number, there's a whole lot of folks who formerly identified themselves as Republicans are now calling themselves independents that don't show up in those statistics that are what I would call the real Republicans. So it's a little misleading. It's the Trump base, but there's no question about this. Officially, the Republican Party has become the party of Trump. And it's a well-oiled machine working with the RNC to get him reelected, and I don't think people should underestimate that.
Absolutely.
All right, we're gonna one more call.
One more call.
One more call. Gail from Wildwood. You're gonna have to be pretty quick, but what's on your mind?
I just wonder why the city of St. Louis is not part of St. Louis County. Then we could vote county-wide money to help with the traffic problems and the police protection, to get more people to go downtown.
You could do that without a forced merger,
Absolutely.
and I've been for that for about 3 decades.
There you go. Gail, thank you. Going to be the last caller of the night. We'll see you next week on Donnybrook. And Donnybrook, your turn. Have a great week.
Night.